Imagine waking up tomorrow morning and feeling something strange the moment you step out of bed. Your body feels heavier, walking takes more effort, climbing stairs is suddenly exhausting, dropping your phone makes it hit the floor faster than usual. At first, you might think you're tired, then the news arrives. Overnight, gravity on Earth has become 20% stronger. What would happen? Would humanity survive? Would buildings collapse? Would airplanes still fly? The answer is both fascinating and terrifying. Gravity is the force that pulls everything toward Earth. Every object around you is constantly being pulled downward. Your body, your furniture, your car, your house, even the air above your head, all exist under the influence of gravity. If gravity suddenly became 20% stronger, Earth's size and mass would remain the same, but the force pulling everything downward would increase dramatically. A person who normally weighs 70 kilograms would suddenly feel closer to 84 kilograms. Someone weighing 100 kilograms would effectively feel like they weighed 120 kilograms. The moment you stood up, you would notice the difference. Every movement would require more effort. Walking would feel like carrying a heavy backpack all day long. Running would become harder. Jumping would become noticeably lower. Even getting out of bed would feel different. For healthy adults, life would become more exhausting, but still manageable. For elderly people, however, the sudden change could be dangerous. Their muscles and hearts are already working hard enough. Adding 20% more weight to every movement could increase falls, injuries, and medical emergencies. Hospitals around the world would immediately see a rise in patients struggling with exhaustion, joint pain, and cardiovascular problems. Animals would face similar challenges. Birds would be among the first to notice. Flying requires enough lift to overcome gravity. With gravity 20% stronger, every bird would need to flap harder to stay in the air. Small birds might adapt, but larger birds could struggle significantly during takeoff. Some species would spend more time resting and less time flying. Insects would also face problems. Many insects operate close to the limits of what their tiny wings can achieve. Stronger gravity would make flight more difficult and energy-intensive. Some insects would have trouble reaching food sources, escaping predators, or traveling long distances. This could create ripple effects throughout entire ecosystems. Transportation would also change. Cars would continue working, but fuel consumption would increase because engines would need more energy to move heavier vehicles. Electric cars would lose range. Trucks would put more stress on roads and bridges. Tires would wear out faster. Transportation costs would gradually rise across the entire economy. Commercial aviation would face major challenges. Airplanes stay airborne by generating lift with their wings. Stronger gravity means they need more lift to fly. Aircraft would require higher takeoff speeds and longer runways. Some airports with shorter runways might become unusable for certain aircraft. Airlines would likely reduce passenger loads and cargo weights to compensate. Flying would become more expensive as fuel costs increased. Helicopters would struggle even more. Their rotors would have to work harder just to remain airborne. Heavy-lift helicopters might lose much of their carrying capacity. Rescue operations, cargo transport, and military missions would all become more difficult. Space travel would face one of the biggest challenges of all. Every rocket launched from Earth already spends enormous amounts of fuel overcoming gravity. With gravity 20% stronger, reaching orbit would require significantly more energy. Some rockets currently in service might no longer be able to carry the same payloads. Space agencies would have to redesign missions, reduce cargo, or build more powerful launch vehicles. The cost of reaching space would increase dramatically. What about buildings? Would skyscrapers collapse? Surprisingly, probably not. Most modern buildings are designed with large safety margins. Engineers expect structures to withstand much greater forces than they experience during normal use. However, stronger gravity would increase stress on every building, bridge, and tower. Older structures could develop problems faster. Future construction projects would require stronger materials and more support systems, increasing costs across the construction industry. Factories and industrial facilities would also feel the effects. Cranes would lift less weight. Heavy machinery would wear out faster. Manufacturing costs would rise. Mining operations would become more difficult because every load of material would effectively weigh more. Industries that rely on moving heavy objects would experience immediate challenges. Perhaps the most important changes would occur inside the human body. Your heart constantly pumps blood upward against gravity. With gravity suddenly stronger, the heart would have to work harder. Many people would experience fatigue during the first weeks. Physical activities that once felt easy would become tiring. Athletes would see dramatic reductions in performance. Sports records around the world would instantly become harder to break. Basketball players would not jump as high, sprinters would run slower. High jump records would become nearly impossible to match. Gymnasts would struggle with routines that once seemed effortless. Every movement in sports depends on gravity. Swimming would change as well. Water would still support your body, but moving through the water would require more energy. Swimmers would tire faster. Competitive swimming times would become slower. Water rescues would become more physically demanding. Mountain climbing would become significantly harder. Every kilogram of equipment would feel heavier. Climbers would use more energy with every step. Some of the world's most difficult climbing routes could become nearly impossible for many people. High-altitude expeditions would face even greater challenges than they do today. The atmosphere would also respond. Stronger gravity would pull air molecules closer to Earth's surface, making the atmosphere slightly denser. This could influence weather patterns, cloud formation, and wind systems.